Alrighty, I see we have just a few more folks trickling in as we go, but we will, I think, get started. Thank you all for joining us this morning, this afternoon, wherever you are. We very much appreciate your participation in this event today. We are very excited to be having the second of our learning series today, looking at how to support youth in inputs, processing, and distribution areas of the food chain, the food system. Ms. Berry, you are here with us. Are you able to hear and speak properly? Make sure everything's working here.
Good
excellent.
morning, everyone. Hi. Sorry about that. I wasn't receiving the link, but now I'm here.
So sorry. Well, great. So we are ready for your remarks. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Ms. Berry is the Senior Deputy Assistant Administrator for USAID's Bureau for Resilience and Food Security. It also serves as the interim USAID Global Water Coordinator. So she has great responsibility for all of the components of the resilience and food security portfolio that we are interested in today. She's had an extensive career and lots of experience in the Foreign Service, working across a range of countries and regions with extensive experience pretty much in all sectors that USAID works in here. And has also worked pretty much in all regions. Our focus today, we do have a number of our speakers today are from Africa, and she knows that region well. And so with that, we'll ask you to go ahead and take the microphone.
Thank you so much, Dr. Allison, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. My apologies for coming in late. That's the way it is these days with our virtual settings. I'm just so happy to be here though. And as Dr. Allison was saying, I have, vast experience overseas. I spent a lot of my time and started my career in international development in Kenya and East Africa, and spent a lot of time working there, working in Somalia, Burundi, Djibouti, Kenya. And so I noticed our panelists, a lot of are from East Africa. So I'm so happy to be with you. I wish we were sitting around the same table, drinking chai and eating samosas, but be that what it may, it's really great to be here. Of course, in all of my work and throughout my career, I think some of my favorite parts are when I get to work on youth engagement issues, which I've done as Dr. Allison, as you've noticed, I've worked in different parts of the world, and just working with youth is so inspiring because it's the backbone of all of our societies, and it is that population that is shaping all of our future. So we all know that the median age in many of the places that we work as a development agency is less than 20 years old. So of course, we're working with very young societies when we work in international development. And we need to make sure that remains squarely a focus of what we do, that we're focused on young people's needs, on what roles that they play in development, what they contribute to the development of their own communities. And it's particularly true when we're seeking to drive, sustainable change. And I know that's something that we are aiming to do everywhere that we work. And all of you who have joined the call today are on that same path. So, just to note, as we're all aware that, there's a lot of rapid population growth globally, and it puts increased pressure on natural resources, and as well as in the demand for nutritious food. And it's placing really intense pressure on governments to find a way to prioritize the creation of more and better opportunities that can translate into employment. And that includes for the 14 million new people that are joining the workforce each year, just in Africa alone. So I think we know that with the right policies and strategies that can engage and empower youth, that can engage food systems, they're really well placed to generate many of these types of opportunities, and in some cases can quickly and with low investment make progress. So policies, of course, on youth can provide essential contributions to unlock agriculture and food system potential to deliver inclusive, sustainable economic growth and improved nutrition. We know that investments in agriculture in developing economies has a far greater impact in lifting those communities out of poverty than investments in other sectors. And youth, of course, we recognize that youth is it's a multifaceted segment of the population. We can't just say youth and that just, what is that, right? Well, it's everybody who falls into a certain age category. And I know different countries categorize that differently, but youth is everyone who falls into that age category. Male, female, LGBTIQ community, disabled, indigenous populations, and so much more. And so all of that community is all seeking opportunity to contribute to society, and looking for opportunities to, break into new economic areas and, sort of really challenge those existing norms. Something that's top of mind for all of us is climate change. We feel it every day. We see it on the news, or we experience it directly. And that is disproportionately defining future opportunities and challenges, particularly for the younger population. And it's going to be there for the foreseeable future. And so there are so many leadership roles for youth to stand up and play in the development and scaling of a greener economies, of greener jobs, and practices that respond to the realities of the day, and that can really lead to green outcomes, find nature-based solutions, and all of those that have less impact on the environment. Of course, greener jobs and techniques will help youth actively contribute to their own resilience and adaptation in the face of climate change, and also can lead to, of course, improved livelihood outcomes. And so USAID promotes a positive youth development approach to engaging youth that will strengthen assets, agency, contributions, and enabling the environment. And the United States recognizes that agricultural transformation, which is what we're talking about today, requires that development partners promote agricultural-led growth that is both inclusive and sustainable and both economically and environmentally. So with that, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to participate and say a few words to kick off this session. And I'll hand the mic back over to you, Dr. Allison.
Thank you so much. We very much appreciate you taking the time. And Jane, I'd like to introduce Jane Lewicki-Zuka, who is our youth advisor in the Bureau for Resilience and Food Security. And Jane is going to help us understand how we got here.
Thank you so much, Christy and Maura. It's fantastic that you've been with us today. Thank you so much. And a good day to all of you, wherever you are around the world. Great thanks also to our organizers, GKI, our fantastic implementation team at Making Sense International, and our reference group member, Regina Sebata, today for putting this event together, and to all of you speakers, and especially you participants for joining us today. So, as Christy said at the beginning of each session in this Exploring the Evidence series, I'm giving a little bit of a background as to why we got here. So the United States believes in youth. And as Maura said, youth need food systems and food systems need youth. That's the crux of it. And over many years, the United States has made substantial investments in programs and policies that support youth contributions to food security, nutrition, resilience. And over the past decade, this has included, as guided by the Global Food Security Strategy, which we are refreshing this year, and also the USAID Youth and Development Policy, which is also being updated this year. But in 2019, Youth Power, which preceded Youth Power 2 Learning and Evaluation, conducted a review of learning, and it noted significant gaps in evidence in the areas that we're working in related to food security, nutrition, and resilience. We're also working in water security, sanitation, and hygiene, but that review wasn't looking specifically at those areas. But really recognizing that we're doing a lot of work, but don't have as much evidence for the work that we've been doing. So while there has been a growing consensus over the years on why to work with young people, many questions have remained on how best to do it in very diverse contexts at times. So at all phases of the program cycle, mission teams and partners, including young people themselves, need to know much more about how best to effectively engage youth as drivers of change and resilience in agri-food systems, especially in ways that benefit both sustainability of the systems, but also the youth themselves. So in 2020, our Bureau for Resilience and Food Security launched the Youth in Agri-Food Systems Learning Activity with Making Sense through Youth Power 2 Learning and Evaluation, which is a mechanism of USAID to bridge these gaps and try to accelerate progress in what we're learning and knowing about how best to engage with young people. So the learning activity aims to advance knowledge on approaches to and the state of the evidence for youth inclusion in international development work related to agri-food systems, and more specifically, agriculture-led growth and food security, resilience, nutrition, and now also water security, sanitation, and hygiene. So we've been tracking strategies, mapping pathways, engaging the state of the evidence for youth contributions in these areas, and also to their country's overall development objectives. We'll also be identifying areas for further research and ways to engage stakeholders around the world in using existing knowledge, particularly young people. And that's why we're here today, to widen this conversation, begin to connect with more and more people around the world about questions about what we all think we know and what we think we need to learn more about, and what we would like to do together to accelerate the creation of opportunities for and with young people to create inclusive, equitable, sustainable, and resilient food and water systems. And we are especially excited about this fantastic group of young leaders that are leading us in conversation today. And again, for all of you for being here today, we're going to talk about inputs, processing, distribution in food systems. So over to you. Thank you. I believe to Regina. Thanks, Christy.
Sure. Regina, is your microphone working?
Thank you, everybody. Once again, good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Thanks all for joining us today on this very exciting, wonderful event. And I'm glad that you have chosen to be with us this morning, this afternoon. My name is Regina Geraldine Nakauchi Sebata. I'm a business development consultant, very passionate about entrepreneurship, passionate about agriculture, founder of Giral Africa, where we offer business development for impact. I have been working on this project since January, and it has been very exciting. And today I'm going to co-moderate this event with my colleague, Ms. Hilda Kevin Nachara, and we are really so glad. I've also been a youth consultant, providing evidence and providing real experience to this whole journey. And I look forward to sharing some, going to continue to shape the interventions, especially for the young people. I loved what Nura spoke about, that the median age is really low 20, and that is for real. That is what the world is about. So the vital. And I'm also very thankful to Making Sense International for working so hard to see that we can have this day today, and we can see and young people are represented very well. Thank you.
Yes. Hello, Netiaba, and I'll be a co-moderator with my colleague Regina, like she already mentioned. Passionate about gender equality for young women and women at large, but also interestingly around empowerment topics. Oh, sure. All right. Okay, noted. Thank you for that. Yes, so I'm very interested in topics around, empowerment, youth engagement, and so related to this webinar today, I'm really, really looking forward to sharing knowledge with you people, all over, the country, all over the world, and I look forward to, getting to understand better this topic. So. Specifically, my question today will be, what would you like to get out of this discussion? To everybody in the audience, kindly feel free to drop your expectations, what you hope to learn, what you hope to take away from today's webinar in the chat box, and then we can be able to once in a while pick from what you have dropped in there, and then we can share it with the panelists, but as well as the audience at large. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Hilda. I just want to make one quick change there. Instead of putting it in the chat, let's put it in the Q&A, because it's easier for us to pull out of there and then pull it for everyone. So please do add any of what you hope to get out of today's session in the Q&A. I see we have a couple that are in, one's already in there and a few more are coming. So thank you all for that. And I think with this, we will ask our panelists to begin. So Hilda, Regina, did you want to introduce our first panelist?
Oh yes, thank you so much, Christy. I think I'll go right ahead and introduce our very first panelist. Our very first panelist is Mr. David CEO of Africa Farmers Media Center, Uganda. You have a lot to share with us, and can you please introduce yourself and we start there.
Yes, Regina, you are breaking. I would like to introduce myself this evening. Good morning to everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. I know youth, you are from different countries and continent. My name is Luganda David, and I'm the CEO of Africa Farmers Media Center, and also the team leader of UNEP Ebafosa Uganda chapter. I'm glad to be part of this webinar, and I'm very happy to share with you a lot of my experience on food systems, mainly on inputs, processing, and distribution. Thank you very much. Back to you, Regina.
Oh, thank you so much, David. Very wonderful introduction there. So, David, approaches in supporting youth in accessing critical inputs or critical knowledge, what do you think the kind of support young people have been getting? What has been your experience? Share with us. Yes, David.
I'm from Uganda, and I've been working with smallholder farmers and mainly women and youth for the last something like 6 years. And from my experience on how these farmers have been working from the garden to bring this food on their plate, it has been an experience to them on how to handle standards. We have been training farmers and mainly youth on standards, on how to add value on cassava, on on vegetables, and we have been supporting them mainly on training. But we find that these farmers, mainly the youth in the rural areas, they find it well to learn new skills, to get new information, and also their acceptability of the programs we bring to them is okay than urban youth mainly, who mostly want to do work which can earn them quick money. Back to you.
Oh, oh, thank you so much, David. So you say that in your experience, rural youth have it hard to actually access the support that they need, that they are trying. I don't know if I got you clearly. And my next question would be, given the support which is there, which has been the most effective way that you have seen or that you have evidenced yourself that has been helpful in actually increasing the access or promoting actually the like climate change mitigation practices as youth are carrying up their agricultural business ventures? What have you seen that is really effective in practice, maybe, or in policy too?
We see, according to UNFPA, in Uganda, 80% of the youth are in rural areas, and we find that over 78% of the youth are below the age of 30. So on my experience, mainly on food systems and providing inputs, mainly here I'll talk about climate information services have been disseminating to these groups. We have been using Village Savings and Loans Association as a vehicle for these farmers, the youth, the women to access the agri inputs like climate information, improved varieties of seeds which are drought resistant, and also training them on how to implement the standards and how to understand the standards, the importance of having standards as a farmer, so that we don't wait for the standards on the processing part. We have seen that many extension workers, when they go to the farmers, they only train them on climate smart agriculture, but they don't mind on where these people get the inputs like manure, insecticides, the crops they plant. But when you target these farmers on the when they are planting, you tell them, you train them that you need to buy quality seed from this shop. You need to plant in lines. You need to irrigate your crops. You need to wait for the seasonal forecast in case you don't have the irrigation equipment, so that you can plan your calendar well. So we have been working with UNBS on a standard we have been developing called Kupindo. In English is Climate Action Market Incentive Standard, which we have been training these farmers. We are agitating that a farmer must implement a standard or must take up a standard from the word go, from the garden, planting, harvesting, and also include the processing. So when I talk of access, the Saving Allowance Association have been receiving training on value addition, whereby they have been receiving these value addition trainings in their groups. So meaning that we find them confined, and you normally find that youth normally come up during this time of value addition, because most of them don't want to go for agriculture, tilting the land. So in value addition, they have been showing up, coming in numbers, trying to see how they can add value and get some money from these crops. Regina, back to you.
Thank you so much, David. Thank you. Thank you so much, David. We shall be getting back to you with a Q&A, and right now we can Hilda can take over from there.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Regina. Thank you, David, for sharing your brilliant experience and knowledge around the experience of farmers and in Uganda. So we'll now go to Topista from Rwanda. Topista, you'll be sharing with us the evidence-based information that shows youth engagement in inputs, processing, and distribution. So we hope maybe the experience in Uganda would be different with the experience in Rwanda, and how can we, learn from there? What are the gaps? What are the strengths that we can borrow and maybe, share with different farmers across the continent, but also the world at large? Thank you. Kindly introduce yourself, and we have 5 minutes for this. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Topista from Rwanda, as you said. I'm the CEO of, currently is the Teta Mushroom organization, but that time I was sending my request, it was a Teta Mushroom farming project. But now, because we help more youth and women, it become organization, not project. So our organization used to grow, cultivate mushroom and supplying it to the customers, and we also process it for fight against malnutrition among the children under 5 years old. So we use mushroom flour and mix it with small fish. That product used to fight against malnutrition as our goal. And in our organization, we used to help. We have now 6 teams. I train them. In those 6 teams include youth and teenagers and women, as our goal is to empower women and youth. So, but in these days, we have a challenge of COVID-19. As it's difficult to meet with them, but we have to train them live, practically, how to grow it, how to supply it, how to pack it from garden to the market. The big challenge we have in these days is COVID-19, but actually, in agriculture is good for us according to our climate. Nowadays, I think the problem we have is only COVID-19. So thank you. That is our project, and we used to help youth and the women. Thank you.
Thank you, Topista. Just maybe one question to you. Drawing from what David has shared in regards to, maybe standards and value addition. Yes, I know you've mentioned about mixing mushrooms and fish for nutrition benefits. Are there any specific standards you have in place to make sure that anything that goes out of the mushroom organization is, meets required standard? Because I know that also largely contributes to, financial growth, but also development. Thank you.
Yeah, it has standards, and as you know, every project or every product you can produce while you use financial. So I used bank to get money for starting that organization, but now nowadays we used to contribute from our teams in order to get more and more. But I used to help them as the engineer agronomist to train them how to grow mushroom. Then after getting the product from those mushroom growth, we used to process it in a mushroom flour. Then those mushroom flour used to mix with the small fish. So the product from those two mixer we use for fight against malnutrition, as I said. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for sharing. I hand over back to Regina to invite the next panelist.
Thank you so much, Miss Hilda. Again, we are at it again. Our next panelist is Mr. Joshua Nyamador. Mr. Joshua, founder of Operation Help Others. Wonderful. From Ghana, from Accra, Ghana. Wow, we are overjoyed to have you today, Mr. Joshua. And can you please go ahead and introduce yourself and share with us a brief the evidence based experience that you have or that you have experienced firsthand, especially through the work that you're offering, through the different engagements, through the different contributions that you've had with different stakeholders. Majorly, it would be with the young people. That shows positive youth engagement in inputs, processing, and distribution areas of food systems. Thank you, Joshua. Please go ahead.
Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you all. I'm Joshua and co-founder of Operation Help Others. Yes, and Operation Help Others is mainly a youth network. We are all made up of youths. And our project is not mainly focused on agribusiness or agriculture, but our mission is to empower and equip the youth for changing their various communities. So our projects are mainly in rural communities, and most of these communities are farming communities. So working on other projects in that communities, we mainly work with farmers. Yes, and our last project, which was in a farming community in the Greater Accra region of Ghana, and what they mainly cultivate there is cassava and tomatoes, pepper and watermelon. So what normally happens is that when they farm for this, when they hello.
Yes, we're still here. Keep going,
Hello?
Joshua.
Yeah, I can hear myself. Like again. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, all right. So what normally happens is that they don't have much requisite about what they are doing, but what they do is that they learn from maybe family members. That's for the youths that are engaged in the farming process at the communities in which we work. And normally during harvest, I realized they don't have that much harvest due to lack of input during the farming process. And also after harvesting, they just sell the produce raw like that, because they don't have they have no requisite to add value to it before they sell. So after the harvesting, farming harvesting, they just sell it, take it to the market like that, and they don't normally farm on a large scale. So I think from my side, though we don't work in that area, so it has been on our heart for the entire year of 2021 so far, that we want to see how best we can come in to provide youth with requisite on how to process some of this product like cassava. So recently I met a woman working on a project on another initiative. So what she does is that after the harvesting cassava, she help the youth add some value to the cassava. They turn it into cassava flour and also make cassava biscuits, chips, and other products out of it. So we are currently looking to also channel our support into that area to help the youth. So that's it from my side.
Thank you so much, Joshua. That was interesting. Maybe I have just about 2 questions for you. So you have realized that there is lack of inputs, which is leading to a bad harvest. Actually, it's also maybe non-capacitating from what you had mentioned. Maybe it's not capacitating the farmers, the youth in agribusiness to go on to or to involve themselves in processing, because you also mentioned that most of what they sell, they are selling primary produce, that if they are producing watermelon, they just take it straight to the market just as watermelon. If they are farming pepper, they don't add value on the pepper. So can you help us understand from the interactions you've had, from all the observations you've made, what do you think have been the main challenges that are limiting these farmers from actually adding value on those on the agriculture? And also, where do you think which stakeholder do you think will be the most important stakeholder to help out? Thank you. And assist their farmers.
All right. Thank you very much, Ujana. I think at the beginning your voice was breaking, so I didn't get the question well. But let me tackle it from where I heard you right. Okay, so the challenge.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. So would you like to repeat the question again?
Yeah, I can repeat the question. So my question is, exactly is that, what do you think is the main challenge that is limiting the young farmers that are involved in agriculture not to add value on their produce that they are farming? And what do you think stakeholders can do, as a recommendation? So those are like 2 questions.
Oh, okay,
what do
all
you
right. So
recommend the stakeholders can do, since you have observed?
okay, thank you very much. So with the challenge, I think the number 1 challenge is for adding value to the produce is lack of requisite. And most of them don't know that, like I was saying in the case of cassava, they don't know that you can. The last time I was talking to one of the youth, and I was telling him you can use cassava to make biscuits, chips, and cake and other things. He was like, oh, how is that possible? So definitely that means he has no idea that cassava can be used to make those things. So the lack knowledge and lack of research, like they don't have access to information on how to add value to their produce. And also in the case of increasing their output. I think most of them are used to the traditional way of farming. They have no capacity building. I also checked to see that in their village they don't have any like farmers association where, let's say, maybe I know other communities have farmers association. Maybe once in a year they bring some resource people to build to a kind of workshop for them to build and expand their knowledge in what they are doing, but there is nothing of that side. So lack of capacity building avenues is also what affecting them. So those are the two challenges I can talk about. And talking about stakeholders, I think collaboration between NGOs and opinion leaders in the community and the government will also help them add value to their produce and also help them gain the necessary knowledge in order to use in their farming. Thank you. Hello? Hello, Regina.
Joshua, maybe your time is running out. You wrap up quickly.
Yes, I'm done.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And now Miss Hilda can take on from there.
Regina, I think we have Hilda seems to have lost her connection. Would you like to go ahead and introduce our last speaker, and then we'll move to our discussion?
Oh, thank you so much, Christy. Thanks a lot. Our last panelist is Mr. Ntende Baker, Icts Ventures Limited, Uganda. Has a handful of experience and very and lots of interesting point of precious time to be inform the world about the next steps for future development that we don't know.
Hello, Regina. I'm not very sure if you've handed over to me, but I think I can go because that has been the norm. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I like the way we are greeting. My name is Ntende Baker, and I call myself the marketing lead at Sunbits Ventures Limited, but I'm the founder, really. So after my graduation, after school, some years back, I went back home and I was looking for a job, but we had a small plot of land at home, which was just redundant. There wasn't anything there. So I decided to plant tomatoes. Unfortunately, on harvest, so many farmers had planted tomatoes. And so a kilo of tomatoes, which was initially being bought at 3,000, in that season, they were buying it for 700. And for me, as a young person that had just tried farming, it wasn't really a nice experience. I refused to sell my tomatoes to the market vendors and all the other people that were buying at 700. And I started going to hotels and schools asking, hey, do you people like tomatoes? Would you like to buy some tomatoes? And fortunately enough, I got a school that said, yeah, you can deliver starting Monday. We buy a kilo at 2,000 shillings, yeah? And I started selling my tomatoes to this school. And before I knew it, this lady, the bursar, was asking, Becca, do you also grow onions? But honestly, the plot was very small. The tomatoes were just few. I didn't grow onions, but I was like, yeah, I don't, but I can get them, because I knew that once my garden ran out of tomatoes, I could go to Amber Court, which is the produce market, buy the tomatoes at 700 and continue selling them at 2,000. And then I did the same with onions. But after some time, it hit my mind, because I finally just engaged fully into that business as a person that works with farmers. You grow and then I sell for you, yeah? I later realized, well, it could be that it's not just me. There could be a lot of young people out there that are trying out agriculture, and at the time of harvest, they are getting all these disappointments. And it could be the reason as to why not so many young people engage in agriculture. Would rather after school run to Kampala, run to a town center close, and look for a formal job, one that requires you to dress nicely in white shirts and all that. So I registered Sunbits Ventures Limited fully as a business, and I started delivering things from markets to schools and hotels and all that. And then again, I was like, okay, how can I maybe support some of these young people if they're honestly going through what I went through at the state of my business? What do I do? So I was like, okay, are there some young people that probably grow things, but they don't have the market? When I went to my home village, some of them were like, I don't like agriculture. What? You grow things, and then at the end of the day, they're buying a kilogram of tomatoes, of maize at 200. So for me, I realized that through using the partnerships that I'd already built, the hotels and schools, I could be sure that there is market. So I was like, okay, how about I enable you, I provide you with the inputs that you need. This could be the tools and the seeds and the fertilizers and all that. All you have to do is make sure that you have land. So I give you all these things, you grow the things, maybe the tomatoes or the onions and all that. The contract says you don't sell them to any other person except Sunbits Ventures Limited, which is my business, yeah? And then for me, my role is to make sure that there is a ready market for this produce once it's ready. So I need to make sure that I have strong partnerships with hotels and schools who are the heavy feeders of the produce and all that. And for me, that's how we've supported youth engagement in agriculture until now. Until 2020, when the lockdown hit, the hotels and schools were closed. So that meant that many tomatoes and cabbages and green peppers that were in the gardens didn't have the market. Then we channeled to working with individual clients. It's not really so much viable for you to tell a farmer to grow things and then start looking for market from individuals, but we've been trying to work with that so that we do not discourage the youth farmers that were already engaged with us from actively engaging in agriculture. That is about me. Yeah.
Miss
Thank you.
Kendra is back, I think.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, Becca. Apologies to the team. I dropped off. My network was quite bad, but I'm back. Interestingly, I love your, personal story you give, and you put a face on this whole youth, engagement into agriculture. Thank you. That really sounds, good. Maybe I know I have seen you and I've followed you, on different platforms, regarding the work you do. I know you do or you sell foods or groceries online. Yeah, is it?
Yeah, yes, I do that. I do that, exactly.
Yes, so I just wanted to be sure. So I don't know, what would you, because I know, in our audience, we could be having people just like you who have such a story and they're passionate about the work you do. I don't know, how would you speak to such a young person? I know you started from home and you had that small piece of land. Imagine this young person does not have that. Like, what advice would you give to that young person? How do they start from scratch, given they don't even have the land, they don't have those, even the ability or the confidence to meet with these hotel people, schools. Yeah, so what advice would you give to such a young person out there?
Thank you so much, Hilda. You raise a very important issue. one of the biggest hindrances to youth engagement in agriculture is lack of access to land. Yeah. Again, in our culture, you really don't have land until you get to a certain point. If you have the chance to inherit from your father, or if you've had an opportunity to get some money and buy one. Yeah. So I know that many youths, even those that wish to engage in agriculture, do not have access to the land. But in my experience, what we've done is there are some people that say, I would like to engage in agriculture, but I don't have the land, I don't have this. So I find the approach of grouping youths, putting them into groups very, very effective to support such a young person, because then they get a point from where they can start. Yeah. So I live in Kaitabawala, a village in Jinja. And so there are all these children that come from around town. They are not really, they don't have land, but then there are also certain friends that have land, or their parents have land. Yeah. So with that, if you group such young people, if you get one that has land, they're interested in agriculture, but probably lack access to the resources they need. It could be the seeds and all that. So as Sandbits, I'm coming and I'm saying, okay, there is this person, they want to engage in agriculture. Bring the land, they are going to bring the labor so that you work together. Yeah. I feel like this young person that does not have access to the land has somewhere to start from. They're acquiring the skill, they're getting the experience by engaging on this person's land and all that. Yeah. But also again, I think if there is a young person that is on this call right now that wants to engage in agriculture, maybe you don't have a friend near you that has land, you're not close to Sandbits who might connect you to someone that has land. Can you identify a farm around your community that you could probably engage with? That's a starting point. You're going to get the skill, you're going to get the experience by interacting with the owners of the farm or the people that run that farm and all that. For me, really, that would be the advice I could give to someone that is on this call. But most importantly, identify someone that has this resource that you don't have, and see if they're interested in agriculture. I'm very sure that they would be interested in working with someone that is passionate about agriculture. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Becca. That has really been, an interesting bit in our conversation. And thank you for sharing so passionately.
Excuse me, Hilda.
Yes, please.
Excuse me.
Yes, David.
This is David Luganda.
Yes, David.
I want to, as a panelist, I want to add on what my brother Beck has been talking about. And
Sure.
the youth out there, you should know that on another side, you should know that if you are to join agriculture, you may not take land as something which is much important to you. And there are many other activities you can do on the agro value chain. And this is what, whereby I'm saying that, for example, for the cassava, if you are doing cassava, if one of your colleagues has planted cassava, even you don't go for cassava because you want to reduce the number of people who are doing the real farming. It's better you bring value addition knowledge to that community and link agro inputs. For example, the solar dryers, the machines which can chip this cassava or which can chip the potatoes to these communities. In the end, you'll provide, you'll be a marketeer, you'll be linking the dots, you'll be a marketeer for these organizations which are selling inputs to these farmers. So you'll be in the middle, whereby you'll be getting employment and you'll be getting some money, than you saying that in case I've not got land, I'll not do anything. But I was adding something on what my brother was saying. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David, for that.
Yeah, thank you, David. So now at this point, I'll open up the discussion to the audience in case you have any, additional comments, feedback, kindly feel free to share with us. But I know there are also a number of, comments and questions in our Q&A. And please, the panelists, feel free, whoever, feels comfortable with answering a certain, question, kindly feel free to jump in when you feel it's fine with you. So there is one here that was just, saying thank you for your story. And they were asking, yes, and they were asking, can you tell us your startup capital to the panelists? Yes, please.
Sorry, I was trying to answer that and then I clicked on something like answer live and I can't go back. I'm not sure if I would just, I don't know if I could go about that, but I could answer that. Yeah.
Please share now. Yeah, feel free to share. Yeah.
So my startup capital, honestly, it's not like the motivational speakers, guys. Don't get me wrong. It's not motivational speakers. The plot where I grew the tomatoes in that year was less than 50 by 100, because remember the plot standard size usually in Ginger is 50 by 100, and then there is a house, and then there is a compound. So it took a maximum of about 150 seedlings, yeah. But when I went out to look for the market from this school, they were like, yeah, you can deliver starting Monday. But the truth of the matter is I couldn't deliver the tomatoes to this school for even 2 weeks from my garden, because they were consuming about 60 kilograms of tomatoes every Monday, and then 60 every Thursday. And yet my garden couldn't honestly produce that. So I don't even have an idea of what my startup capital was, because I remember the seedlings were from just a few tomatoes that were there. I didn't buy the seedlings. It wasn't really intentional for me to say I'm growing tomatoes as a business. So no, it wasn't. It's because I was at home and I needed to do something to make me busy as I was looking for a job, yeah? And then this just came in as a, by the way, as something small that later grew into a business. Like I said, just after 1 week of delivering, I started going to the market to buy the tomatoes at 700 Uganda shillings, 700 Uganda shillings a kilo, and then supplying to this school at 2,000, which for them, by the way, was little money. And yet for me, it was making me wonders and all that. It was a problem for a youth farmer for me to be buying from them at 700. It was a problem for me as a youth farmer, for someone to be buying at 700, but then when I went to the market, for me, I found it as a business, yeah? But still I had time to think about it as a problem for the young people that are engaged in agriculture. How do we make sure that they are not affected like Baker was about to be affected? Because I can tell you, for me, I wasn't, because I later was able to sell my tomatoes at 2,000. So I can't recall my startup capital, but it was less than 100,000 Uganda shillings. Which is less than, which is about $30 maybe. Yeah, something like that.
Wow, thank you, Becca.
Yeah, not
wow.
Motivational speakers, thank you.
No, not at all. And
yeah.
I hope even the audience agrees with me. This is something, that we can relate with. Being that I'm in Uganda, the country you're in, I definitely relate with some of these experiences. And, you have faced and shared with us here, which I believe is not very different from the rest of the team on this webinar. I guess it makes a lot of sense. So there is a question here from Hadija, and I'll go directly to the question, for time. She has a question going to David, and she's asking, David, have you engaged the youth you work with to find out why they are not interested in primary production, but only interested in value addition? Do you have any of the stakeholders that you have started up agribusiness and how they are doing? What are the perception of farmers towards adoption of standards and following the gaps there? I don't know if, David, that's clear with you. There are about 3 questions from Hadija. Please feel free to take it on.
Thank you very much. Are the questions in the
Q&A?
Where
Yes.
are they? Oh, okay.
That one is specifically from Hadija Meme.
Okay. Actually, for the most of the youth have been engaging in the Village Saving and Loans Association we work with. One of them told me frankly that, man, I'm tired of agriculture. I've tilted land for years. I've been at home, and we also do agriculture at school, and most of them were doing this agriculture as not an assignment, but as a punishment. And most of them look at it as a punishment. That was one of the youth. Another youth frankly told me that what we plant, for example, when I plant maize, the money I use to buy the insecticides to kill the fall armyworm, to do the digging, I almost not get enough money from this. So I would rather have this training you have brought. I buy from a colleague and I add value on that. For example, the pumpkins, I add value on this product, then I sell it to another market. Because most of them are border riders, most of them are in towns, they do the chapati business, and most of them know the marketing part of it. So they have been telling me many issues on this, and that's why they don't love agriculture. And also due to the fake seeds mainly, because this is on ground, and I visited a garden whereby the whole half of the garden, the seeds had not come out well, and the seeds were not performing well. It was due to, so most of these issues made these youth to not love the primary part of it, of production, and they would want to engage into value addition. Most of them are asking for value addition mainly in confectionery, because we train them on adding value on cassava. That's one of the products we do. And most of them wanted bagia, donuts, pancakes, but of high quality, whereby they can brand them, package them with their names or logos so that they can sell them to other communities, and which we are addressing their issues on that. So another issue was the stakeholders have engaged mainly as a communicator. We have been mobilizing Village Saving and Loans Association in 3 districts: Luwero, Mukono, Buyukwe district. And because I've not given much background on what I'm doing, so these groups were given what we call solar dryers. These dryers are helping this community to add value on the food they plant, and we gave them cassava plantings of high quality. This was now class 1, plus beans for nutrition. So these are women. The Village Saving Association include the women, men, and also the youth. So we want and we do a SWOT analysis of these groups, whereby everyone has to get a part where he's comfortable. You find that the women are more, and some men are more comfortable in the garden. The youth come up with, so that for us, we shall look for the market. And also some of the women are in value addition, and the leadership mainly for these groups are women-led. You may find that there are 4 men in, because they're made up of 30 members, you may find that out of 30, you have 4 men. So the stakeholders are addressing, and also started, there are women, youth, and also men. Another issue you brought out is, do you have any, okay. So the perception of farmers adopting the standards, actually in 2019, Africa Farmers Media Center and UNEP Ebafosa Uganda, we started working with Uganda National Bureau of Standards, and we developed a standard. It's now a standard which we called the Climate Action Market Incentive Guide. and which we translated in Luganda. And for us, when we reach the rural farmer, we call it Kumo Mutindo, whereby we did the survey and we looked at all the standards available. Most of the standards are looking at the product. The product, for example, when you have started the maize value chain, maize. When you have bought the maize, you have started flying the maize, maybe adding value, packing it, and also selling it. That's where the standards were starting from mainly. But here we flagged out some crops like mainly cassava, because it's drought resistant, it's grown by many people, and also we can track it well with these farmers. So when we started with cassava, we developed this standard saying that a farmer or an individual has to start not from the product, from the harvest part. He has to start from where he buys the agricultural inputs, and he has to know which quality of seed am I going to plant, and where am I buying it from. So here, this standard calls for quality agricultural inputs, using agronomic practices of using natural-based solutions, of ecosystem-based adaptation approaches, of planting crops with minimal insecticides, with minimal spraying. And also, when you plant, when are you weeding so that the crops are not affected by the pests to bring diseases? When are you harvesting? And also, here we integrate the solar dryers, which we gave them. You need to dry at a certain period of time, at a certain time where the sun is okay, and also to dry this food to a moisture content of below 12% recommended by Uganda National Bureau of Standards. And we go on the packaging part. What are you using mainly to package your produce? So here we introduce the tight bags, whereby the farmers also, we found out the way they were drying their food was not of good quality, and the food was getting spoiled on the way. After 1 month, starts developing weevils and other insects. So after drying that food, which miller, or after packing the cassava chips, because I've told you that we singled out cassava, and after packaging the cassava chips, which miller are you going to mill your cassava? Here, when you talk about food systems, you have to follow all these steps to know that you are doing the right thing until you reach. So we singled out also the millers. We did a survey to know which mill to go to. So we found out an interesting part that UNBS, ever since, you remember, our maize was stopped. Once it was stopped from going to Kenya, but after the government worked on that. But people said it was political, but it was the aflatoxins in the maize, the way we dry. So also the millers, and Uganda National Bureau of Standards is checking on the millers, how to construct, where to establish your mill. So we found out a good mill where we recommend our farmers to take their produce. So from the milling part, how are you packaging? I'm going back to this climate action market incentive guide. We are following it. We have started from the agro input where we have bought our seed, we have sourced our seedlings. So when you reach also packaging, which packages are you using to pack your food? Are they right for the food to stay there for some months? How are you labeling? So we bring out also other standards which UNBS has of labeling, packaging, hygiene, and marketing. So until the product reaches to the end user. So when we are processing, for example, cassava, we have been having many raw materials like, not raw material, but waste. We have been having waste of peels, of cassava flour, which comes when you are packaging, which drops on the floor. So we utilize that to make briquettes. It's a raw material for briquettes. So we make a whole holistic chain of seeing that for a product to benefit a farmer and also at the end market, you have to work on all the steps, which we call Kumo Mutindo. This is the climate market incentive guide we established with UNBS, but for us as Africa Farmers Media Center, we are implementing it in the village saving alliance associations we are working with. They have to know this. And on another issue, where I've seen that why did the youth get interested in the value chain? So during our trainings, during our trainings, I was telling them about this standard that check, you have to follow this. And I also told them the disadvantages of consuming dirty food, which is from the ground. Because when we were visiting these farmers, we found out that they were drying their food on the bare ground. The food was dirty. Showed them videos on how this will affect them and what to do. So they took it up and they got interested in this. Hello? Hello?
Yep, we can still hear you, David.
You've stopped
Carry on,
hearing?
yes.
Hello?
Please carry on, David. We are still with you.
Okay, thank you. So another issue I was so talking about. So to the youth out there, you should not end at remember, if you are talking about food systems, you have to know that where am I depositing, or where is the waste going? Where is the waste of the tomato? We have seen many tomatoes decaying in the markets. For example, in Nakawa market, Nakasari, you find a lot of cabbages decaying. So as a farmer, that's what we tell farmers. One day I went with these farmers to the market, to Mukono market. We have a Chico market there. Who knows Mukono? You know that place. So I told them, do you see your eggplants? Someone has bought your eggplants from the garden. You have told us they are giving you little money. They're giving you a sack at 20,000. That is little, that's Ugandan shilling. That's very little money. So they're buying your produce at low. The trader is just dropping them on the ground. Most of them are ripening on the stores. So remember, this trader is losing a lot of money. And when it comes back, he will just reduce on the price and you keep on complaining. So what the solution we came out is adding value on these vegetables, drying them using solar dryers. And interestingly, they said we shall never sell our fresh vegetables if you're not giving us money that we want. Because we see here, if you add Africa eggplants, Intula plus Nakati, that is, and Gobe, those are some of the vegetables normally eaten here in Uganda. But when you dry them to a moisture content of below 10% in just 3 days to 4 days, pound them, you can pack them and sell each small tin at 2,000 to 3,000 or small. I'm talking of grams. You can sell a small pack you have packed in the polythene and also labeled very well where you are and where you are located to a small, and you earn, because we saw that someone can earn over 50 or 60,000 from maybe something like 100 kilograms. So here a farmer is getting some confidence in agriculture, in what he's doing, and also in what to do, and also what to tell these traders who come and just buy their produce at a low price. So I think Hadija, I've answered most of the things, and I see you are doing a lot of interesting work, and one day we shall come there to train our farmers we are working with. Back to you.
Thank you, David. I actually would like to jump in for just a moment. I think I wanted to thank all of our panelists. I think you've given us a really good range. One of the challenges we found as we were looking through the data, as Jane mentioned in her introduction, we were trying to, through this learning activity, We wanted to make sure that we understood what's going on, what's working well, what the current evidence base is and where the gaps were. And as we were looking at information around inputs and processing and distribution, it was very clear, that ensuring that young farmers and other youth who want to engage in the agriculture sector have appropriate and climate smart technology for improved inputs, irrigation, fertilizers, seed varieties, integrated pest control approaches, and access to land and finance and creative ways to get around those barriers is really important. Those are all critical for productivity and profitability. And at the same time, the processing and distribution functions, as you've all noted, are also critical for maximizing value added and making sure that youth do make the most profit and realize the most profit from what they've done. But what we also found in the literature, as many of you have mentioned, is that the resources, the capital, the knowledge required to gain access and to use those resources often is beyond the means of small scale farmers and entrepreneurs and many youth. And that when support isn't targeted to youth, that can really widen the gaps between them and some of the larger scale operations in the market. And so we know targeted support's critical, but there's no consensus in the literature about what are the best ways to get there. How do we provide that support? What will work effectively, especially at scale, right? We don't want to just help 10 youth in a village. We want to help youth across a country, across a community, across nations, across the whole continent, and the whole globe at the end of the day. So I wanted to ask you just to reflect a little bit more on sort of, as you thought about, David, you started to answer this in some of your discussion here. Is there anything anyone else would like to add in about, specifically what are those approaches when you work with youth, and how do you try and what have you seen that works or what might work if you're trying to do this on a large scale? I think that's a critical question for us, and I wanted to get some of you to try and weigh in on that particular issue.
Hi, Christy. Hello.
Hello. So, can I share something? I don't know if I'm live. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, thank you. So, for me, in my experience, when you look at financing, I think what has worked for most young people is the low interest loans that sometimes are offered by the village saving and loans associations, the things that David is largely engaged in. When you compare these to the banks, they're a bit, banks are a bit too legalistic, and the process is too long and scary for most of the young people. Because the perception among young people, if you talk about financing and you bring in banks, they think these banks are going to take my land, so they never go for that, yeah? So when they go into such groups, the village savings and loan associations, they get low interest loans and all that. So then they are able to sort of afford all the inputs that they need for their garden. So for me, I think that has worked for them. So I think if there was, just relate to the low interest loans, if there was any other partner, any other opportunity for the young people to get loans that are of a low interest, yeah? So these could be from other institutions that are not the village savings, because the VSLs are sometimes limited in terms of cash, the money that they can offer to the young people and all that, yeah? It's really, really small. And then the other thing that has also worked is the youth group. Yeah. I was sharing on the chat that in Uganda, mostly, where is my home village, yeah? I've seen most young people come into groups, yeah? Because then they're able to access loans if it's from the bank. My internet is unstable. Can you guys hear me? Sorry. So the youth groups enable the young people easily access loans from financial institutions, but also there is sort of an opportunity for them to learn from each other. So if there is anyone that is thinking about supporting young people to engage in agriculture, I would honestly encourage working with youth groups. Yeah. So if you're sort of going into a community, you're going to encourage them to come into groups. So identify the young people that are passionate about agriculture. Ask them to come into groups. Yeah, let the groups establish themselves. Let them register, because the registration processes are a bit easy at village and sub-county level. So I would encourage that. Let the groups be registered at the village or sub-county level, and then you can sort of easily support them. Yeah. But also because of the process the process that it takes, yeah, from identifying the young people from that particular community to bringing them together and then sort of registering the group, it also gives you an opportunity as the stakeholder, as the person that wants to support them, to know who is actually passionate or who was just coming for the sake of coming. Yeah. So if you have something like 100 people that are coming and they're saying, yeah, we are passionate about agriculture and really, really appreciate the support and all that, at the end of the day, you're going to have about 20 people that have remained as part of the group. So then you can easily support those ones, because then you're very sure that they're actually passionate and all that. Yeah. So I would advise that. It is something that has worked for me. I usually go to the communities, I mobilize young people, they come in big numbers. On the next meeting, there are 10. On the next meeting, there are 7. On the next meeting, there are 5. Then I know, well, this 5 is now going to work. Because, these people that are passionate and are willing to sort of go an extra mile to make sure that they productively engage in agriculture.
Thank you, Becca. I don't know if I have the floor right now, if everybody can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello, oh yeah,
I can hear
I wanted
you.
to also make a small contribution on the question that Christy had raised. I don't know if I got it clearly. She had asked if what can be done, or maybe what is lacking for youth to grow larger businesses. Is it the question? Christy, pardon me on that one. Christy.
Yes, I'm sorry. I was talking and mute was still on. My apologies. I think the key question I was really wondering about, I think Intende provided a good answer on the financing side, and there's certainly, depending on where you are, many countries have extensive microfinancing for youth available. But microfinance might not be enough in some cases where there's a lack of knowledge, where there is, especially about some of the creative solutions that our panelists talked about. For example, figuring out what are those market niches, where there's a gap or where there's an opportunity to profit as, sort of as a middleman, as someone who's going to be a reseller, right, of goods. So the question I was, I think beyond financing is when we look at trying to support youth with inputs, in processing and in agribusiness and in distribution, excuse me, what is it that works at scale? Distribution, often the solution is infrastructure investment. Well, that's great, and that helps everybody. Depending on how it's funded, it can help some people more than others, right? So those are sort of the challenges, I think, is when we look at the big scale picture, what does their experience say about how to extend the reach for areas other than financing?
Okay. I wanted to just make a small contribution because I come from a background of business development, and particularly for the youth, and also I have a background in research. So adding to the very good points that have been provided by our panelists, I've been privileged to work on different research projects. The most The most highlights I can give was the Restless Development Building Inclusive Agricultural Technologies International regional research. And during our research, we did research around the challenges, opportunities, and the perspectives of the young people within the agricultural food value chain. And some of what we came out from the research or the research findings is that inclusive of other challenges like the financial products, there is also a very big challenge of stakeholders working in silos. What do I mean? That on this journey, for us to be able to realize the dream of youth development of agri-food systems structural change and being able to support youth, the best way that can be supported is that we need everybody to work together. But we realized during our research, we did visit a number of countries. That was Accra, Ghana, Zambia, Dar es Salaam, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania. And what came out strongly is that every party on this chain almost wants to work alone. We have the youth who are the key stakeholders who would want to work with government, but is government willing to work with the young people? Because now the youth, yes, we have creative minds, we have started out these ventures, but we need the right policies that are going to support the businesses to grow. Those are some of the challenges. So ultimately, we need like a comprehensive approach whereby we all agree and we all accept to work together, that the promoters, we have promoters on the value chain. For example, the development partners, just like USAID, is coming out to support. But are we all willing to be informed, to inform USAID? Are we willing to work together? Then also in my personal experience, in my professional work, I've realized, because I work with businesses, small business owners, organizations, to see how we can spur their growth, how they can grow at scale, exactly what Chris was asking. But we have a gap with research and development. I agree that we have very wonderful creative ideas, but we should be very, very, very particular and very deliberate on making sure that these solutions are speaking to the needs of the community. Is it doing so? Because, and now we look at the outcry of the young people about the financial products that are being provided by our commercial banks, even our central bank. We have different, for example, here in Uganda, we have quite a number of programs that are out there to support, as policy interventions, to support the youth in agriculture, youth in tourism, but most of these projects, the youth can't even benefit. They cannot realize positive youth development. Why? Because this is coming from a background where there has not been substantial research. Because they come up with wonderful programs that are looking like they are going to spur youth development, that are going to solve a problem in agriculture, but then the eligibility, the criteria to be able to access these opportunities may not be the best that can actually be able to uptake the youth that need these solutions. So me, I would advise that going forward, we should really promote the aspect of research and development. And adding to that, also we go to capacity. I liked it when one of our panelists, actually, I think most of our panelists were highlighting it, then the need for knowledge or capacity development. I think we should agree as young people in business, as young people in development, as young people in climate change, wherever that we are in the different spaces, that we need to have capacity. And the best way we are going to have this capacity is most times accepting to also professionalize the work that we do. Because you find that Mr. Joshua Amador hinted on it, that farmers, young farmers are doing business the same traditional way. But is it helping? Because the world is changing. Look at the conflict time in which we are. This is the COVID-19 crisis. But we have not yet embraced the idea of professionalizing our businesses, introducing professionals in business to support us, for example, financial advisors, business development consultants who are there to assist. Because I've had quite a number of interactions. You suggest someone an opportunity that we can create a good concept, we can write a good grant, we can see how we can put up a good marketing strategy, because without market access, without market linkages, you may not be able to realize a sustainable business that is really meaningful to the community. But is that acceptance there? Because when you get real-time professionals, there are quite a number of opportunities in the ecosystem right now. For example, digitalization. This is this is the way we are going to rewrite the revolution in business. COVID-19 has already shown us that the traditional of doing business has been eliminated. We are now on the new form of doing business, and business is going to be done digitally. If we can embrace some of the digital innovations that are around there, if we can be supported with incentives, but we also have to accept through the mindset change that as from where we are starting from, have to accept to hire professionals to invest in the businesses. I know sometimes youth are crying about finance, but in my experience, I've been a business owner since 2016, and I started right from scratch. I even didn't know that I would reach this day when I can do some serious work. But when you start with passion and the right mindset, you go on learning. The learning curve does not end, and you can also be able to get much more greater opportunities, and you can also find a way of really growing the business to scale. But without the research and development, we may be limited to the growth of the agribusiness sector, and we also without the capacity development, and also like
Regina, you're breaking up. Maybe we can take a pause and come back to the rest of your comments in just a moment. Right. Is it back? No. Okay. There's another question, Hilda, if you'll allow me to break in, that is in the question box from Sara Torto that I think is a quite good one, asking about how youth can work and identify ideas to use agriculture as a business in their various communities. We've heard about getting youth together in groups and finding those market niches, but that's hard, right? That's one of those challenges, I think. So what suggestions or wisdom would those of you on the panel suggest about how youth can work in groups within their communities to identify where those market niches might be or where the opportunities might be for them?
Christine, this is
yes,
David.
Please. Please.
This is David, and I would want thank you very much, Toto, for this question. Actually, I'll give my testimony. During COVID, when the lockdown started in Uganda, during COVID-19, had carried out some compound gardening in front of my yard. And I wasn't taking these vegetables as something important to me. But until I got some time, I looked at them. This was kumawichi and other African vegetables. So I developed, I said, since I have time, let me move around the village for the township where I stay. I moved to the stores. I talked to the ladies, check, can I supply you with vegetables? Without adding value, without supplying vegetables. So I got 3 women who wanted these vegetables on a daily basis, and they were paying me 10,000 a day. That's how I was getting over like 30,000 a day. So meaning that after 1 week, the vegetables were what? Were over, and I couldn't get any more supply. So from that story, from that experience, I've seen that it's better to plan when you are starting. You know what you are going to grow, and also you check on the market. Is it moving? I didn't know that these vegetables were moving until I moved out. So you need to move out of your comfortable zone, go to your community first locally, then you can at least know that at least you can set up some business in agriculture before you go on value addition and also add other things. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Did anyone else have a suggestion to add or experience to share in that vein on that topic for us? Okay, so those of us who are looking
Hi,
through the
everyone.
Q&A, are there any other? Go ahead, sorry. Please, Regina, are you back?
Yes, I'm back. I just wanted to add on what Mr. Luganda had mentioned here, that when you really have to plan. That's I cannot agree more with David, and we should going forward, as we are supporting youth in development, we have to. I've realized, because I've been working with accelerators, that's people those are organizations that support small business owners right from scratch, ideation, growth, and I've also worked with incubators as a business coach, as a businesswoman, up to when I phased out to now development consultancy, just independent consultancy. But I've realized that the biggest, though it is what comes out, it's what is said most, that what youth are most challenged with is finance. I don't think finance is the biggest challenge for youth in business or youth in agri-food systems, in processing. I think the biggest challenge is around the planning, and it's also around the mindset. Because today, when they tell you, so many youth, we are not victimizing, I'm not victimizing youth, or it's not saying that we are not doing enough, but I think we have a lot more to do. Because when different stakeholders of people who have been on this journey come out, or researchers, and like, you start, agriculture is not bad. We still have some few youth who say, no. I have a serious degree that I did maybe from one of the best universities from my place, from my country, and I don't think I should be pursuing a career in agriculture. But remember, agriculture, of course, may not be having so many formal jobs, but it has it is like the most productive sector. Because look at the case right now, we put it a case in scenario. Uganda, we've been under total lockdown. Now we are going to almost maybe 1.5 months or almost 2 months. But people in agriculture have not stopped earning money, just because they chose the path where it's most productive, and where also the biggest opportunity of our country lies. So as you go ahead, when we are venturing out to support the economy, we should understand, because when you're more strategic, this is what we tell people during the development process, that when you are starting out, when you have an idea, when you have a business that you think about how sustainable will this idea, or how sustainable will this business be, or how scalable? Because the more the market opportunity, the more scalability, the more sustainability. So when David went out to the township and interacted with the ladies, there was already a market opportunity, though there was a challenge of the inconsistency in supply. But of course, when you plan, you can be able to mitigate all those risks, because you have a risk management plan. And then also moving forward, that's when we also need more support from stakeholders as we are working together. Because now, if we have a government invest in these initiatives, for example, if we have good financial products that are coming from like the central bank, specifically for youth in agribusiness, that would be a good one, because then there you can be able to contract or to subcontract various local farmers who are supposed to be providing you with produce consistently, because most big players or big farms that need this produce, they want to be assured with consistent supply. Then that's where also USAID can come in to support that. How can we come up with projects that can actually make sure that there is sustainability in this? And as the youth are planning, they are coming from, they're not working going backwards, but we are working going forward. Thank you.
Great. Well, I think we are coming towards the end of our time here. We haven't answered all the questions, I know, but we've certainly gotten to several. If any of our panelists would like to type in answers to any more of those open questions in the Q&A, please feel free to do so. And Regina and Hilda, will hand it back to you for the wrap up.
Thank you very much to all our panelists for today's discussion. Thank you for the audience for sharing us with very informative feedback, questions, comments. I must say that this has been a very engaging and informative, webinar. Thank you to the organizers. So at this time, we, just like Christy mentioned already, we are really going to wrap up. We have a few minutes to do, the final wrap up, and then we can call it a day. So I and Regina just have a few, takeaways, and this will. There is a hand from David. Kindly.
Yes. I want to run away, but I would want to mention three things to the youth before we leave. Since how can we come up with, for example, many youth have come up with projects, and most times we look on sustainability. So we need youth, when you're coming up with a project, come out with something which can bring in money, something which can earn you something in case you are bringing any, because if you see on food systems, for example, any product you choose to work on, if you choose cassava, if you choose potatoes, make sure that you are adding value on something until the product, that you follow that value chain. Instead of just providing things to communities and you're not engaging and you're waiting for donor money. So there is no any more money which is bombarded, which is coming up in Africa. We want to change the narrative whereby you have to first come up with something, for example, with a product which can fetch money. And I've been seeing here people talking about ICT and what. So when you mention of ICT, we don't mention these complicated things of developing applications, what they are there, but let us utilize the available ICT, for example, Facebook. Learn, go to YouTube, get tutorials and learn how to market agricultural products on Facebook. Facebook has got many products on how you can retail your product to your community. And also I'd urge the youth to start what we call innovative volunteerism, whereby you are volunteering your resources and injecting money into yourself to add value on your skills and also build your career and also the product you are developing, so that you can get some money. Instead of coming up that you are working, you are not getting anything, instead of coming off the complaining all the time whenever you find your subordinates and also your mentors. Thank you very much. That's my submission.
Thank you, David. And actually that brings me to the rest of the panelists. In case you have any final words you may want to say before we close, kindly feel free to, unmute and say your last words just before we give the conclusion. Becca, do you have any final comments? Topista and Joshua?
About my comments, I think David has said it all. And myself, I'm not into agri, but giving it a careful consideration. I want to venture into it, and I encourage all the youth on the meeting right now to also get into it. I know it's very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Joshua. Topista? Topista, is still with us? And Becca?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, sure. Please kindly say your final remarks before we can conclude, in case you have any.
Let me take this time to thank you. Thank you for everything. Thank you for conversation. It was really good and I appreciate. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you too. To you, Becca, anything final to the audience and to everybody on the webinar?
Hello.
Yes, please, Joshua.
Yeah, please. I think I'll be glad if I can get in touch with David. I have a lot I have to learn from him. So if I can get in touch with him, that would be great.
Okay, I hope David has had Joshua loud and clear. Joshua would love to get in touch with David. So David, if you're on the call, kindly reach out to Joshua, and Joshua may also reach out to David. Okay, so at this point, I'll just give a few final remarks from what we have drawn from today's discussion. And basically, this is just a wrap up from the different speakers regarding our topic. So I'll start with, the panelists who spoke about, made remarks in regards to farmers in the rural areas actually find learning in regard to agriculture more, they would love to engage in agriculture more than people who live in the urban or city areas. That was one of the remarks from one of the panelists. And then also went ahead to another panelist also mentioned something very interesting, that in a value addition, within the value addition chain system, there's so many things we really look at. And for me, something that, got me hooked here was, mixing mushroom and small fish for nutritional benefits. That was really very interesting, because usually we just do value addition and maybe we are just looking at the end product, maybe snacking and so on. But this specifically was around, nutritional benefits. And she also went ahead to mention the challenges that they've been facing. Obviously, COVID-19 has, brought enormous challenges to different aspects of life, and agriculture is not any different. So COVID-19 was also mentioned as one of the biggest challenges during this period. And then we also had a comment from the panelists who mentioned that, lack of land has been the biggest challenge for youth, especially in regards to agriculture and engaging into agriculture, which I also had many of the panelists agreeing with. And I also agree to this. Then we also had, the panelists spoke about identifying, how can youth, overcome such a challenge of not having access to land. And he did mention that there is need to, identify and form groups such that, when you're in a group, then it's easier to bargain and have access to different resources, and name it, in regards to agriculture. And some of the experiences our panelists did mention that, they have encountered on this journey of, engaging in agriculture, mentioned agriculture, one panelist mentioned that agriculture has been seen as a punishment for some of the, in some of the countries. And so that means youth really wouldn't want to, relate with something like that maybe brought pain to them. And I think we need to work around to see how we, dismantle this perception and get youth into the aspect of, loving agriculture and taking it as something, passionate that can lead to their development, but also add value to them in one or another. And then they also mentioned that, packaging is very key in terms of value addition. How you package your product really gives someone, maybe they would love to take your product, much better as compared to when you just, throw it in something, in a bag or what. But you need to give your packaging, something enticing, something, very catchy, such that, people can easily relate with and love to associate themselves with. Then also they mentioned that sensitization and awareness of, of poor food storage should be something that we put very much emphasis on. And thereby, we get to eliminate the issues around food wastage when you find, food is being, for instance, the maize in Uganda, at one point it was not allowed to go to countries like Kenya. They rejected it for reasons of, storage. Then also in terms of wastage, the panelists noted that there is need to have value addition, which I've really mentioned a number of times. So when you have value addition, you eliminate the chances of having, food wastage and hence wastage when you see it in the market. Also, we had a panelist mention that professionalizing the work we do. When we are doing something, we need to make it professional, because when you make it professional, then you're giving it, a bigger reach, a bigger audience, and you never know who lands on that, on whatever you're doing on your product. It can land you somewhere. It can, grow your networks. It can bring in more, more resources as, as beyond what you expected. Then they also noted that agriculture is the most productive sector. And here she did, make emphasis on, look at the COVID-19 pandemic we are in. Agriculture has also, has in one way or another been very, very, very important in a way. We look at these other sectors, many of them have been locked down, but agriculture has gone on to run amidst the pandemic. There might be challenges registered, but still it stands out as the most productive sector. So I think from me, that's basically it in terms of conclusion. I don't know if Regina has additions. Kindly feel free to come in, or any other person at this time, if they have any additions or comments. Please, you're welcome.
I think there is no more to add because time is not on our side at all. We just have to have a wrap up from Christy, and yeah, we call it an evening, an afternoon, or a night.
Hi, Reggie. Becca, I just rejoined. I am not sure why it was irresponsive, but thank you so much for organizing, and thank you to all the participants for being part of the conversation. I am hoping that whatever we've discussed shall generate more conversations on how we can promote youth engagement in agriculture, but also be able to support the young people that want to engage at any part of the value chain. Thank you so much, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Tende, for your contributions. We very much appreciate everyone taking the time today. And we are at time, so we do want to be respectful of everyone's time. We thank you all so much for joining us. And you'll see in the chat box, we have a little information for you about the last two sessions in our series. One of them is around policy, which we didn't discuss in depth today, but the second one next Thursday is around engaging youth in ICTs and digital solutions. And so we've heard quite a bit about that in today's session, and I expect that that might be of interest to many of you as well. So we hope you'll be able to join us for those. Thank you again for spending your time with us today, and we look forward to continuing the conversation. Thank you all so much.
Thank you all very, very much. So appreciated. So much rich discussion, and we look forward to kind of capturing it in written form as well, with some synthesis framed around some of the evidence discussion. And you all are incredibly inspiring. I did drop a question in the chat box myself because the Q&A wasn't working for me. I don't know why. But I did want to say to you that I think one element that I hear over and over, or I see, is that youth leadership itself plays a huge role. You talked a lot about mindset, and I was asking what qualities you think you have as youth leaders or resources and support that make the roles that you play as change makers possible in this field. So anyway, that's something we can think about. And if you want to send in a note on that, we'd love to keep that in the notes as well. Thank you all so much.